Have you ever felt like you're caught in a loop? Chasing some big idea, some perfect goal, only to get snapped right back to where you started? Well, today we're going to get into that exact feeling, this very human chase for truth, by looking at it through a really cool lens, the clash between a beam of light and a yo-yo. So, where do we start? Let's go way back, all the way to Plato. He gives us this incredible image, people chained up in a cave, watching shadows dance on a wall. To them, that's it. That's reality. But then one person breaks free, stumbles out, and sees the real world in the full light of the sun. And that journey from shadow to substance is really the blueprint for our entire story.
So first, let's just sit with that idea for a second. This state of only seeing the shadow on the wall, it sets up this massive conflict between what's real and what we think is real. And honestly, that tension has been driving human thought for thousands of years.
Now, there's a name for this kind of thinking: ethical dualism. It's this deep-seated view that the world is basically a giant battlefield. You've got good over here, evil over there, light fighting darkness. And it's not just some dusty, old philosophical idea. It's a story we see literally everywhere. Right? So when you see the world as this stark choice between light and dark, what's the natural impulse? Well, you run. You try to escape the shadows, get away from the darkness, and chase after that pure, unwavering beam of light that we call truth. And believe me, this chase is nothing new. It is ancient. In the book of Genesis, one of the very first things that happens is the separation of light from darkness. You see it in ancient Zoroastrianism, this epic cosmic war between good and evil. It's right there in the Dead Sea Scrolls with the sons of light and sons of darkness. Even our basic images of angels and demons, it's all part of the same story. So this makes you wonder, right? How far can you take this chase? What happens when it's not just one person, but a whole group of people, and they all become laser-focused on their version of the light? Well, there's a really interesting idea from physics that we can borrow here. It's called the social laser. The theory is that you can pump a whole population full of information, getting them excited and aligned until they become the single coherent beam of social energy. And here's where it gets complicated. What happens when you have multiple social lasers, each totally convinced they are the only true light? Well, they clash. They inevitably collide. But here's the twist. This chase, even when it's laser-focused, almost never travels in a straight line. It's more of a back and forth, a cycle of tension and release. And it turns out, a simple child's toy explains it perfectly. This is the yo-yo theme. Think about a yo-yo for a second. Part of it is totally handleable. It makes sense. You drop it, gravity pulls it down. Simple. But then there's the unhandleable part, that almost magical moment where it defies gravity and zips right back up to your hand. It's fascinating because it breaks our simple expectations of how the world works. And that's exactly why the yo-yo is such a brilliant symbol for us. It perfectly captures that feeling of making a break for it, feeling that moment of freedom, only to be yanked right back by forces you don't fully control. It's the illusion of escape, and then, snap, the return. Let's just map this out. The throw, that's our big attempt to change things. The span at the bottom, what yo-yo pros call sleeping, that's our brief moment of freedom. It feels great. But then comes the return, that pull of old habits. The endless repetition is a perfect physical model for something like recidivism, falling back into old patterns again and again. But you can't keep doing that forever. That constant tension, the throwing out, the snapping back, it puts a massive strain on the string. And eventually, that string can only take so much. That brings us to the breaking point, the moment when the string snaps. Artists and writers, they get this instinctively. In Chekhov's amazing play, The Cherry Orchard, there's this pivotal moment where the characters hear the sound of a string breaking off in the distance. It's not just a random sound. It's a symbol for the end of an era, a final, clean break with the past. So when that laser-focused chase for the one perfect light becomes too intense, the strain is just too much. And the very systems we built to support that chase, our ideologies, our beliefs, they're suddenly revealed to be illusions. The string breaks and the ground just falls out from under us. And we land here, at zero. The chase is done. The game is over. The yo-yo, that symbol of our struggle, just falls to the ground. Broken. The cycle has finally ended, because it couldn't sustain itself. But okay, what happens next? After the fall, after the break? Is the darkness that's left just
nothing? Is it failure? Or could it actually be something else? The story we started with, the traditional one, it tells us that darkness is the enemy. You see it here in the Gospel of John. The light came, but people chose the darkness. It frames it as a moral failure. That's our old friend ethical dualism talking. But then you find verses like this one from Exodus, and it just stops you in your tracks. Moses doesn't find God in some blinding flash of light. No, he draws near to the thick darkness where God was. This just flips our whole light versus dark metaphor completely upside down. Mystics actually have a name for this. They call it divine darkness. And it's not evil or scary. It's a state of being that's beyond our simple rational minds. It's that moment where reason just gives up because it's reached its limit. It's not emptiness, it's the space where everything becomes possible. And maybe that's the real trap of the light metaphor. It's always pushing us to fly higher, be brighter, be more perfect, but it forgets that we're human. We're like Icarus, we have wings made of wax, and if we chase that sun too relentlessly, they are going to melt. The fall isn't a maybe, it's a certainty. So, what's the other option? Well, maybe the point isn't to win the war between light and dark. Maybe the point is to just stop fighting. To accept the darkness not as the enemy, but as part of the whole, and to learn how to love all of ourselves, shadows included. Which brings us to this absolutely profound idea from Alexander Solzhenitsyn. That line we draw between good and evil, it isn't some border out there in the world between different groups of people. It cuts straight through the middle of every single human heart. The biggest battle isn't out there, it's in here. And so I want to leave you with this question. What if the snapped string and the yo-yo falling to the ground isn't actually a failure? What if it's a return, a necessary journey back to Earth, into the shade, not as a defeat, but as the only way we can ever truly become whole?